The Moscow Times is an English-language weekly newspaper published in Moscow, with a circulation of 35,000 copies. It's distributed for free at places frequented by English-speaking expatriates such as hotels, cafés, embassies, and airlines. It is also available by subscription, but it is not available at newsstands. The newspaper is very popular among foreign citizens residing in Moscow and English-speaking Russians. In November 2015, the newspaper changed its design and type from daily to weekly and increased the number of pages up to 24. The newspaper regularly publishes articles by prominent Russian journalists such as Yulia Latinina and Ivan Nechepurenko. It has served as a training ground for foreign correspondents, including Alan Barry, future New York Times Moscow bureau chief and Pulitzer Prize winner. History. Founding. Dirk Sauer, a Dutch publisher who came to Moscow in 1989, made plans to turn his small, twice-weekly paper called the Moscow Guardian into a world-class daily newspaper. Sauer brought in Meg Borton as its first editor in May 1992, and the team used a Radisson Slavianskaya hotel as its headquarters. The first edition of the Moscow Times was published in March 1992, and it quickly became a primary source of news and opinion, quoted both in Russia and the West. It played an important role by giving space to Russian commentators. For example, in the fall of 1993, it was able to play a role in defeating the census, when anti-Yeltsin forces occupied the Russian parliament and censorship was revived. Russian newspapers came out with large blank spaces on the front pages where articles critical of the authorities had been suppressed. The writers of those articles came to see us, published the next day in English in the Moscow Times. Their articles were quickly picked up and beamed back in Russian by the BBC and other foreign radios, defeating the censors. For the mid-1990s until 2000, it was based in the old headquarters of Pravda, and it was the first Western daily to be published in Russia. In 1997, the website Moscow Times RU was registered. Expansion. In 2003-04, the Jobs and AMP Careers and Real Estate appendixes were added. 2005 saw the addition of the glamorous Moscow Guide appendix, which featured high culture, and the launch of the annual Moscow Dining Guide. Until 2005, the paper was owned by Independent Media, a Moscow-registered publishing house that also prints a Russian-language daily newspaper. Vedomosti, the St. Petersburg Times, and Russian-language versions of popular glossy magazines such as FHM, Men's Health and Cosmopolitan Russia. That year, Independent Media was acquired by the Finnish publishing group Sanoma. In 2006, the paper began its alliance with the International Herald Tribune, while 2009 saw the launch of the Moscow Times website. The first color issue was published in 2010. In 2009, it published Russia for Beginners, a foreigner's guide to Russia, written by foreign authors who offer advice based on their own experiences of living in Russia. The paper celebrated its 20th anniversary in 2012 with a gala dinner at the Hotel Balchug Kempinski, Moscow. Recent history. In 2014, sister publication The St. Petersburg Times ceased publication. In 2015, Sanoma sold Moscow Times LLC to Demian Kudryavtsev, a former director of Kommersant. Controversy. In April 2014, longtime editor-in-chief Andrew McChesney stepped down and was replaced by Nabi Abdulev, a former Moscow Times reporter, news editor, managing editor, and deputy editor-in-chief who left in 2011 to head RIA Novosti's foreign-language news service. Shortly after his appointment, Abdulev argued in The Guardian that the West's biased journalism robs the West of its moral authority. In the aftermath of the Ukrainian crisis, the Moscow Times was criticized by a number of journalists like Izvestia columnist Israel Shamir, who in December 2014 called it a militant anti-Putin paper, a digest of the Western press with extreme bias in covering events in Russia. In October 2014, the Moscow Times made the decision to suspend online comments after an increase in offensive comments. The paper said it disabled comments for two reasons: it was an inconvenience for its readers as well as being a legal liability, because under Russian law websites are liable for all content, including user-generated content like comments. In January 2014, malicious ads on the Times website redirected visitors to an exploit kit landing page. In December 2014, the Moscow Times was forced offline for 2 days by a distributed denial-of-service attack. It was forced offline a second time in February 2015 for unknown reasons. Structure. Regular sections. The Moscow Times highlights politics events that happen inside the country and abroad. Business and culture news 5 days a week. News. Interpretation of the latest news and events. Business and finance, coverage of the business world. Stocks, coverage of the financial and stock markets. Opinion, op-eds. Real estate market. Job opportunities, vacancies and education. Classifieds, private ads. Mini-guide, referential information. Entertainment, main events of the day. Bulletin board of Moscow's expatriates. Context, leisure and entertainment. What's on calendar of culture events, cinema, theater, exhibitions, ballet, opera, separate publications and special projects online. It has PDF issues that go back to 2001, and its archive contains nearly 130,000 articles dating back to 1994. International Herald Tribune, international news every day. Intercountry annexes: the Moscow Times, Russia France, Russia Finland, Russia UK, etc. These editions are dedicated to bilateral issues of cooperation and promote establishing of business and investment programs of interaction between two countries. They focus on economic, trade, and investment, as well as interculture project, tourism issues, real estate catalog and real estate quarterly. Regular specialized business editions about real estate market. The Moscow Times Guide, Russia for Beginners, Russia for the Advanced, Dining Guide, Travel Guide, Bar Guide, Glamorous Edition, Seasonal Style Guide, Fashionable Trends, Secular and Culture Events in Moscow. Conferences. The Moscow Times, meeting place of Russian and foreign investors, businessmen and experts in Russia and abroad as well. Bibliography. Michielson, Dido, Moscow Times. Het Russische Avontuur van de Xaren Ellen Verbeek, Amsterdam. Uitgeverij IEUW Amsterdam, 2013. ISBN 9789046814727.